I mean, I must admit, it was terrific. Couldn't take my eyes off it. It really was great. And those who have criticised the atmosphere and that London stadium, how good was that, Simon?
Look, I mean, there's something to be said for the fact that if you haven't been inside a stadium for 18 months, your team finishes 6th in the league. It starts the season with a very compelling victory at Newcastle. And is playing well at home and there's a good spirit and everything's together, that you would be disappointed if the continued aggravation of people's disappointment about being in that stadium manifested itself as the primary reaction. So I'm not surprised, and I hope it continues, because I think anything that's positive, you know, I think football fans at this moment in time, you know, I'm not categorising them as some sort of lowest common denominator, but I think they are ecstatic to be back inside stadiums. There's a feel-good factor. We've come out of this miserable pandemic, or are coming out of it. We're getting back some of our liberties that we should have never lost in the first place. And the fundamental, aspirational part of societal sports in this country is football, and they're back inside the stadium again. And then they've got good football to watch. And they've got a new dynamic with referees and officials wanting the game to flow. So we are in halcyon moments as far as football's concerned. And long may this feeling of feel-good factor and the appreciation of the national sport continue.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it is the time to enjoy what you enjoy. You know, if you enjoy going to football, for God's sake, go and enjoy it. And I was so pleased that West Ham fans did that last night. In people like Mikel Antonio and Declan Rice, they have players that many other clubs would want at their clubs. Of that, there's no doubt. Look at Antonio last night.
Certainly, I mean, obviously, Mikel Antonio is reaching a certain stage of his career where he's still at the peak of his powers, but as a desirable asset for other clubs, it might not be quite as prevalent as Declan Rice, because Declan Rice is at the beginning of his career. But, you know, Mikel Antonio has been outstanding for West Ham, not just recently, but for a significant period of time. He was outstanding when all the plaudits were going to people like Marko Arnautovic and so on and so forth. And when you see post-match interviews, you know, of course he feels good. He's just, you know, emulated the record of the highest Premier League score for West Ham. He feels good about it. He feels good about the value that's being attached to him. It was interesting that David Moyes said that he wasn't particularly happy with his performance in the first half and had a few words with him, which livened him up. But I think Mikel Antonio represents a lot of good things about football. The level that he's played at, where the journey he's gone from Tooting into Nottingham Forest and wherever else he's been to get to West Ham. And the way he plays, he simplifies the game. He's just a very effective footballer. I must admit, I was with Moyes though. Where do you stand on the cardboard cutout? He was looking for it. If I score, I'm going to get that, lift it high in there. I mean, I love Moyes. Just it's a generational thing, I think. But I'm with him. Is like, nah, it's not for me. That I'm a little bit like that. I mean, I'm not sitting there like some curmudgeon that doesn't want people to have a good time. But I get a bit tired of some of these routines, some of the nonsense. I used to watch some of the stuff that was going on with some of my own players and go, really, is that necessary? But if they enjoy it and the fans enjoy it, you know, what's the harm in it, I suppose? Simon,
let's get into this, because West Ham fans need some information, don't they? And I'm going to give it to them. Last night, I mean, Baz, amongst others, our chum, the West Ham fan who we know, he was in touch with me right away. So were one or two others, and I don't mind them getting in touch with me directly, because the ones who do, I know. And I must admit, I should have expected it. I should have expected it last night. So 4-1, great win for West Ham. The place is rocking. They all go home happy. And then the messages start coming in. Jim, imagine if the manager got backed by the people at the top of the club. Another message. We've got a goalkeeper in on loan, but with only a few days remaining in the window, we're desperate. We need a forward and a defender, and they're not going to do it. Another one. We're the only side left not to sign a player on a permanent basis. And we're in Europe. These owners of ours are disgusting. All right, so this morning I've done a bit of digging. So this is where you're at. So West Ham fans, pin your ears back, because if you want to know what is available to you in the window and what's going on behind the scenes, I'm about to give you it.
By the way, the word disgusting is not appropriate, I think.
No, for the owners.
No, I don't think it's... I mean,
it's ridiculous.
Disgusting is Steve Dale at Bury. Disgusting is the guy at Macclesfield. Those are disgusting owners. These are guys that you don't like.
Exactly.
Bit different.
So, Simon, you can get your teeth into this in terms of reaction. This morning, I understand this is where West Ham are at right now. How much is available to spend in the remainder of the window? I'll tell you. Between 40 and 45 million is available to spend. Why didn't they try for Tammy Abraham? They did try for Tammy Abraham, but it was too expensive. A fee of 36 million quid, but then the small matter of £160,000 a week. Where are they at with Kurt Zouma of Chelsea? They trying to get him? Yes. They're trying to get him. And they have been talking. In fact, so much so, a deal is in place between the two clubs, Chelsea and West Ham, of around 30 million quid. But the player's own personal terms and his wage is the stumbling block. But add to that, is my understanding this morning, there is a plan B in place for a defender, and everything is set for that to happen. Everything's organised for that to be completed. And just a reminder, Simon, it probably won't wash with many of the fans who are listening amidst all this morning. West Ham have the cheapest season tickets of the lot in the Premier League. So, Simon, when you condense all that down, what's your take on that? What's available to them? Between 40 and 45 million is available. Tammy Abraham, 160k a week, ended up in Rome with Mourinho. Do they want Zuma? Yeah, they want Zuma. A deal's in place between the two clubs, 30 million quid, but his own personal terms and wage is a stumbling block. And on it goes. They've got a plan B, and the plan B, I'm assured, means that another defender is in place and that will happen. So where do we go with this?
Well, where we go with it is that they are victims of observations they've made in the past about wanting to put the side in the top six. They are victims of moving a stadium in such a way, not victims, but they are exponents of moving a stadium in such a way that they've managed to alienate a fan base. So we can't argue on their behalf that season ticket prices being at a low level is anything other than what the West Ham fans perhaps were entitled to, given the fact they didn't want this move and they don't like this stadium and they don't feel the stadium reflects the kind of environment they want to be in. So they can't have that, right? They also probably can't have the arguments that £45 million is going to give them the opportunity to retain and maintain a position when you've got 6, 7, 8, 9 clubs in the Premier League that will be wanting the same space and place that West Ham have been able to achieve. Whether you've got Arsenal in there that want to move from 8th to 6th and have spent £130 million on transfers, whether you've got Leeds United, whether you've got Everton, they haven't spent a lot of money, but notwithstanding it, they've spent a lot of money previously and probably eclipsed what West Ham has spent for some time. But I do also, on the flip side of it, get a bit tired of the endless narrative from certain sections of the West Ham fans about what the Gold and Sullivans of the world are really about. Yeah, okay, they're not ideal owners. They're football operators, and they operate in a certain way, and with the greatest respect in the world, more often than not, whether I like it or not, and a lot of the time I don't, the football clubs they've been involved in actually progress under their ownership. Whether you look at Birmingham and the argument how much they actually did and didn't put into Birmingham, actually they did or didn't take out of it, Birmingham was in better nick when Sullivan and Gold were there than anyone else previously and anyone else post their time. West Ham, well, we can argue about, you know, the various ownership models that are there, and we can talk about these other guys that came in the other day that couldn't answer a question and seem to spend their whole time on social media telling everyone what they're going to do, rather than necessarily sitting in the studio where they've got an opportunity to answer reasonable questions. The challenge is that when you want to sign players from Chelsea, we just gave 2 examples of players that people got to sign. Tammy Abraham from Chelsea and
Kurt Zuma
from Chelsea. The problem is when you've got the kind of money that Chelsea have got and the kind of money that Man City have got and the kind of money that PSG have got, the big problem isn't the transfer fee, it's the wages. Right. Because all of a sudden you've got players out there, and you know Tammy Abraham is a player that I really rate and really advocate for being a top player. But he ain't one yet. He's got to learn his trade to be at that point.
Right. It's my understanding Zuma wants more than 30 grand a week more.
So when you get to
goes to West Ham,
when you get to 160, 170,000 pound a week for bit part players at Chelsea. You know, Kurt Zuma's decent. He's all right. He's a modern-day Michael Dewberry, as far as I'm concerned. I look at him and go, how's that player going to be on £7 million a year? And we've lost our minds. Now, the flip side of that is, this is the industry. But it's an industry that's being created by certain football clubs that are prepared to pay salaries. So that means that everybody else can't feed in that pond anymore. Because the moment you try and sign one of their players that doesn't feature part of their plans, all of a sudden you've got to pick up a wage structure, which, quite frankly, is offensive. It's an affront to what people should be getting paid for their real talents. When you start looking at players like Kurt Zuma and saying, are you outside of your mind? This kid should be on £7 million a year. And West Ham are a little bit like King Canute rowing against a stream. If you don't want to pay those kind of wages, then don't dip into Chelsea's pond and try and sign one of their players. Because their wages have already been driven up by petro money or Middle Eastern money over at Man City. It's a very difficult conundrum.
Go with your plan B, in other words.
But I do think Sullivan and Gold are architects of their own problems. But I do think that the West Ham fans, Bazzers of the world, they need to pare it back a little bit, because they've got a side that's going well. Of course, they want to keep it well, but you're getting to the point where it's not being particularly constructive. You're just being destructive, waiting for the opportunity to go, see, I told you so. it must be quite galling for them to find themselves top of the league. It must be quite disappointing because it kind of deflects from their energies. And I'm not giving. You can see where my head starts and David Sullivan's backside's finished. So we're not in that territory, right?
Yeah.
So, but the bottom line is I do find it a bit unnecessary. You're going to go on and on and on. If you think, with respect, those guys that walked in the studio last week got a cure for all your problems, you know, perhaps you need to sleep on it. If you wake up in the morning with the same thinking, you should go back to bed. The idea that Sullivan and Gold are the devil incarnate is wrong, but they're not perfect owners, and 45 million quid to maintain a side that's put you into Europe probably isn't the best story that they've sung.
No.
Palace are spending more than that. Palace spent £25 million on the centre-half. They're trying to buy Eddie Nikita from Arsenal for another 20 million quid. They brought other players in.
Yeah.
Now, Palace have got more investment in the club, but my understanding of Gold and Sullivan's wealth is they can do this too if they want to.
Sure.
So, context, Jim. I've got to get balance on this.
Absolutely, and you're right to be, Simon, but those are the facts. I mean, there's no point in us cracking on with this morning if we don't know what the facts are from the top of the club. Those are the facts this morning, and I've given them to you as straight as I can. Between 40 and 45 million is available. Did they try for Abraham? Yeah, but he wanted 160 a week, and of course there was a £36 million fee. Where are they at with Zuma? A deal's in place between Chelsea and West Ham of around 30 million, but his personal terms and the wage is the stumbling block. And on it goes. There is a plan B which is in place to bring in a defender before the end of the window, so that will happen. But I mean, you want the facts, those are the facts, and it makes me smile when I see some of the messages I'm getting in front of me. There is one, what a surprise, Jim White backing the board all the way. Do you not get bored of the same dross, Jim? Asks Lewis Wall. Yeah. Lewis, I'm giving you the facts, mate. Whether you like them or not is up to you. Ryan of West Ham, every 6 months you fall for the "we are trying" line. Every window it's the same noise. We want them out, says Ryan. Oh well.
You finished 6th in the league.
Yeah.
Where are you going with this?
Exactly.
Like, where are you going? What is the point behind this? Now, if you're finishing 4th from bottom, and you're sitting down there, then you can have an argument about it, and you may not like them, and you might have good reason for not liking them.
Absolutely.
But what's the point? And it's basically just because Jim says a point of view that you don't like doesn't mean it's necessarily wrong, does it?
Jim White and Simon Jordan, Monday to Thursday morning, 10 till 1. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.